Hi, welcome to Paleo Greenbird. This is Greenbird. Today's video is going to be about the bow drill. It's going to be a friction fire video, and it's going to be a great introduction. Whether you've done this before or you want to try it for the very first time, this will give you pretty much everything that you need to get started. So first, I'm going to do a rundown of the different parts of the bow drill kit, and then we can go from there.
Hi.
Hi, Emily. Don't come outside though. My flint knapping stuff is still out there.
Yeah.
Okay, shut the door. The mosquitoes are getting in. That's okay. I'll edit it out. But the mosquitoes are getting in, so could you please shut the door?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start by running through the components of the bow drill, and then I'll try and break down a little bit more information on the particular pieces. So, the first thing you're going to have is the bow. That's very important. This is my bow is not strung. I should have strung it prior to the video, but once we actually start using it to make a call, you'll see what it looks like when it's strung. Right now I have the rest of my cord wrapped around here on a handle. I drilled a hole in here and attempted to also turn it into an atlatl at the same time. I drilled the hole in kind of a funny angle, so it didn't work out. But anyway, the next component you're going to have is the hearth board, and this right here is white pine. I'm sorry, it's white cedar. You don't want to use white pine. This is white cedar, eastern white cedar, and it's about a little more than a ½ inch thick. And we'll talk a little bit more about the details of your hearth board and what you want. Okay.
Yeah.
The next piece of the bow drill that you're going to have is going to be your spindle. This is the part that's actually spinning as you're drawing the bow back and forth. It's creating friction on your hearth board, and that's what's going to create your coal.
Okay.
So the last component to the bow drill, what we have here is your socket. And this is extremely important because this is what's going to allow you to take your spindle, you take the pointy end, which is what you've carved sort of to fit your socket, and that's what controls the spindle, keeps it in one spot while you're drawing back and forth with the bow. Okay, so this is a basic breakdown of the parts of the bow drill. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth now. Okay, so my bow, this is a piece of fallen maple. Okay, so this fell in a storm. It was it wasn't really dead. It was on its way out, but it was still green. So as you can see, I still have a little bit of finish work that I'm doing on this, but this will work right in the state that it's in, and I really didn't need to do anything to it to make it work. This bow is a little bit shallower than some you might see online. Some people prefer a very deep belly to the bow. This part here is the belly. If it was a real bow, like a bow and arrow, this would be the belly. This would be the back. So my belly's very shallow. I actually like that. I feel that with the shallower bellies, you have a little bit more control. You're not as far away from your spindle when you're working the bow. I'm a little bit closer. You'll see that when we actually start to make a coal. You'll see how it really helps maintain that back and forth and that steady, straight, preferable angle. It really helps me with the geometry. But some people prefer a wider bow. For whatever. It doesn't really matter. As long as you can work the spindle, that's what really counts. The string that I'm using, or the cord that I'm using for my bow is paracord, and it's not just any paracord, it's Titan paracord. If you've never heard of Titan paracord, or if you've never used it, please, look it up. I'm not going to get into a ton of detail in this particular video. I actually have a video on my page that's a review of the Titan paracord. But it's the paracord that will make you want to replace all the paracord that you have. You won't want to use anything but this. Once you check it out, it's still 550 military grade. In fact, I think it's a little bit more than 550 just because of some of the extra strands that are involved in there or added in there. So basically, that's it. I notched one end, I notched another end, and that's that's what this is all about. So. One more thing. You're going to want to be able to keep this secure on the ground while you're drawing the bow back and forth. It's about 2 inches wide. You don't want it too wide. You have to keep a couple things in mind. This is about a little over a ½ inch thick. And when you're drawing the bow back and forth, you're creating friction, you're creating heat. You're actually heating this board up, okay? So if you have a huge board, you're using a big wide board, you're never gonna, I mean, first of all, you probably won't find anything that big in nature anyway, but you know, if you have too big of a hearth board, that's just gonna suck up your heat, okay? And it's gonna take longer to heat the board, it's gonna take longer to create the friction, and if you happen to stop too soon, it's gonna dissipate your heat much, much faster than a small board where your heat is contained, it's small, you're not going to lose much to the actual material itself. You might lose some to the elements around you, but the material itself is not going to act as like a heat sink and absorb your material. So this is a piece of Eastern white pine, and I'll go over this a little bit more a little further down in this video. Second, we have the spindle, okay? This spindle is also white cedar, okay? So this particular kit is white cedar on white cedar. Now the length of your spindle, the longer your spindle is, the more difficult it's going to be to control it with your socket, okay? Because it's just the laws of physics. The bigger it is, the harder it is to manipulate. You want it short, so you can put your pressure on it, you can keep it straight, you can control it. So typically what you want is about hang 10. Surfer dude, right? So as you can see, this is pushing it. I've got relatively large hands, and this is even a little bit, just maybe a couple centimeters bigger than a hang 10. I prefer a little bit longer of a spindle just because it's annoying having to make these all the time. So I figure I'll make it a little bit long. It might be a little bit difficult in the beginning, but as they burn down, as they reduce in size from using them, they become increasingly easier to use. You can see I have the bottom of it is just rounded off a bit, a little bit pointed, but mostly rounded. I think you can see that. Let me get a better picture. Okay. But on the other end, I've got it much pointier. That's because that's my socket end. Okay, so the socket, what I've done to create this socket is this is a piece of beech wood, which is a relatively hard wood, and I burnt into it, put a little notch in there with my knife, and then I put a coal in there and just kept blowing it until I got a little bit of a divot. That's the best way to do it, in my opinion. It hardens it. So this pointy part will connect to the socket. You don't want it to be a perfect fit. You want it to be a little bit loose because you want it to spin. You want as less friction on this end as possible. I've actually had bow drill kits that I've made where I didn't do a good job making that end pointy, and I actually started to get smoke on the top instead of on the bottom, and my spindle produced a coal on the top of the spindle. I could blow on it and it would turn red like a coal. It was crazy. But that may happen to you. Who knows? There's nothing to be concerned about. Just do whatever you can to mitigate that. So those are the core components of the bow drill and kind of a little bit about them. So let's talk about when it comes to stringing your bow drill. Okay. So a few things you want to keep in mind when your spindle goes in. You want your spindle on the outside. If that makes any sense at all, outside of the string. Okay. So what you don't want. Let's see if I can even do it because it's so incorrect. I don't practice it. What you don't want is something that looks like this. Okay? You don't want it on the inside of your bow. Or of your string. I keep saying bow, but it's string. You want it on the outside. And the best way, up through the bow. So the best way, I'm going to correct myself, the best way to prevent yourself from ever having the spindle on the inside is to thread it up through and then twist it on the outside and down. Every single time you'll have it on the outside. Okay? Hope that was clear enough. Okay, so underneath the bowstring, in between the belly and the string, push it away from me, and on the outside of the string, and twist, and there we go. So after you do that, you want to take like a little measurement here, kind of see where your measurements came to. And it doesn't have to be precise, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay, so for me it's right there. I'm going to go ahead and make my knot. I'm going to push it in just a little bit, just to get myself a little bit tighter of a knot. Alright, so you'll see I got a lot of play there. Let's test it out and see if this is what we want. Alright, so this is a little bit on the loose side. That's okay. I can't tell if this is getting a good picture or not. Okay, so there we go. Looks loose here. Right like that. And the reason I don't mind it loose, I actually prefer it loose, is because I can tighten it by taking my middle finger here and these fingers and pushing on that string. Okay, that tightens it up. I'm reducing the slack. So as I'm drawing, this is a great trick. This will help you a couple different ways. Not only can I control the amount of space, or not only can I control how tight the string is, but it'll also help me once I get a coal. Because what happens is when your string is tight and solid, it wants to fly out. It just wants to fly out and fall on the ground. So once you get your coal and you stop and you're all excited, your spindle goes flying, your fireboard flies up, your coal's gone, and you're frustrated. With this, I can tighten it, get the string as tight as I want. Now when I have my coal, and here's my socket, and I've got my coal, and I want to check it, all I have to do is just let go of that string, and now my tension's reduced, and I can easily pull my spindle up or manipulate my spindle without that tension wanting to fling it around. Okay, you'll know what I'm talking about, because this will happen to you. You'll be drawing your bow back and forth, and your spindle will just want to go flying. So you can cut the end of this cord after you're done. I prefer to wrap it, just because I always like to have extra cordage. In any situation, with any tool that I'm working, I just feel like the more cord, the better. Plus this, in this case especially, I mean, I have enough to where if something was to happen to this, if I was to fray it or it was to get damaged, I have enough to make a second one, or maybe I make a second bow drill, who knows. So there's a few basics on the preparation of the bow drill kit. Yes. And that we'll be able to see it in action. So hopefully this will cover at least the basics of what you need to know about the bow drill. So when working with the bow drill, like any other friction fire, there are a lot of key indicators that can help you determine whether or not your actions are positively affecting what you want your outcome to be. So for example, there are smells, there are feels, there are sounds, all of those things that sort of help you, as you get to do this a little bit more, you'll start to realize, oh, that's the sound I want to hear, or that's not the sound I want to hear, or, that smells like smoke, but it doesn't smell like enough smoke, maybe I need more. So what I suggest is using materials that are proven, tried and true, just to get the initial understanding of the bow drill, and take out that one variable that you can't control, which is the materials. You never know in the wild if your materials, what the moisture content is. Sometimes it's hard to even tell what kind of wood it is unless you're really good at identifying, wood, which I'm so-so. I'm not really great. So I would say, if you're starting out, don't be afraid to use modern material that's not found in the woods. For example, this is Eastern white cedar. You can get this exact material at any big box, hardware or lumber store. And what I would do is most of them will have what's called a cull bin. And so you go to their cull bin, and basically it's wood that has some meaningless flaw that nobody would ever realize unless you're a contractor or work with that material, or you're a salesman or something like that. And you can literally, I've picked up huge pieces of wood for other projects and this too, for up to 50 cents. Around 50 cents a piece. So Don't be afraid to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go cut a notch, and then we're going to try and work this bow drill and see what we can make happen. All right.